Thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for taking the time. We had a discussion. We just want to confirm really that because of the retire and rejoin and the panel's role in relation to appointing chief constables, we just thought it would be useful to take this as the confirmation hearing for the reappointment of the chief constable. So the panel unanimously supportive of that, and they are completely satisfied that you as the Commissioner have been thorough and objective, and this decision is based on merit, and that you've been transparent, very transparent with this process. So thank you for that. And as I say, we're more than happy to support the reappointment of the Chief Constable. One of the things that we've asked, which doesn't affect that decision, is if we can have some clarity around the dates, so what those dates be, and just in terms of whether it's like the end of October 2028 or the end of December 2028. And just in respect to some of the detail, you mentioned, Lee, about the legal advice and the process issue in 2022, that reassurance around those timelines, so that just as protection really for that we don't run into a problem later on. That's we'd appreciate that. Please.
That assurance.
Thank you.
And so thank you very much, all of you. As I've always said from the time that I've taken office, that the credibility of my role is predicated on the amount of scrutiny and the robustness of the scrutiny of this panel. So from my point of view, I welcome the questions, even if that gives pause for thought in terms of thinking about what are the clarity that we need to give that assurance to you. So I'm sure the Chief Constable will be pleased, and I will convey your kind words and messages back to him as well. And I'm sure we get an update to you in June.
And just to say, I think unanimously as well, we all agree with Sean about that he's done excellent work, and we're really happy that he's able to stay that extra bit of time and navigate us through.
Yeah, he's pleased to know. Brilliant. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
It's an outstanding force, which is
Yes. That's the ambition. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Sorry. Wait for there are some more issues that we want to raise. There's another agenda item, and I'll hand over to Simon.
They're under AOB, Chair.
Yeah.
Right. There are three statements, a couple of statements and a question that need to be read to the panel. The first one came in from Arfon Jones, who was the former Commissioner of North Wales Police. And he submitted a question which went to the Commissioner's office. So I'll read his question first, quite long. And
just to South Wales?
Sorry?
Is the question just to South Wales?
I think that, yes, just to South Wales. I'll read the question and I'll read the answer.
Thank you.
And it can be minuted then as well. Okay. So he says, between 27th and the 29th of October 2025, ACC Jenny Gilmer presided over a misconduct hearing for Officer Y, who was granted anonymity. The officer had committed a number of criminal offences, including malicious communications and other potential sexual offences, but a decision was made not to prosecute him through the criminal courts, but rather by misconduct hearing. Had the officer been an ordinary member of the public, they would have been dealt with in open court and no likelihood of anonymity. This is not the only misconduct hearing where officers have been granted anonymity, and it is felt that South Wales Police are not operating in an open and transparent way, and by giving police officers an easy way out by being sacked or resigning, or allowing alleged criminals who were police officers to walk away without publicly recorded sanction or a criminal record. By dealing with him through misconduct hearings, he has avoided being placed on a sex offenders register or receiving a sex offender prevention order. In fact, how do you, the public representative in South Wales, know that this ex-officer is not posing a daily risk? The way this criminality was dealt with was unequal and justice was not seen to be done. My question, therefore, is whether you will undertake an investigation into South Wales Police's unjustified use of anonymity in misconduct hearings, and as a member of the South Wales Criminal Justice Board, will you scrutinise the CPS's decision making around cases where officers have committed alleged crimes, but where they allow the police to cover up offenders' identity on spurious grounds? It is particularly suspicious that the CPS have destroyed their files and decision notices in such a short period of time. Your intervention is essential in restoring confidence in the ability of South Wales Police to dispense fair, just and equitable open justice. So that was sent to the Commissioner, because that's asking the Commissioner to do these things. And the Commissioner has responded, and I'll read the response. It says, in relation to decisions to authorise anonymity in misconduct hearings, both the chair of a panel at the misconduct hearings held under Part 4 of the Police Conduct Regulations and the chair of an accelerated misconduct hearing held under Part 5 of the regulations have discretionary powers under Regulation 39.3 for misconduct hearings and regulations for AMHs to AMHs. Don't know what that stands for. Accelerated misconduct hearings. So they have discretion to exclude any person as they see fit from the whole or part of proceedings, to impose such conditions as they see fit relating to the attendance of any person in order to facilitate the proper conduct of those proceedings, and give such directions as they think appropriate, prohibiting the publication of any matter relating to the proceedings. They then set out the misconduct hearings under Part 4 of the regulations. I won't read that in full, but I will publish this with the minutes. It's a lot to take in. And they also set out here the regulations in relation to misconduct hearings. It says here then at the end that the OPCC, the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, has routinely received written rationales for hearings conducted under Part 5 Accelerated. However, following the recent introduction of the regulations relating to Part 4, it was identified that this practice has not been consistently applied. This oversight has now been addressed, and both advisors and chairs have been reminded of their obligation to provide the OPCC, Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, with the written rationale for such hearings. It's important to note that the OPCC has no authority to overturn a decision regarding anonymity. This responsibility rests solely with the chair of the hearing. It would not be appropriate for the Police and Crime Commissioner or the Police and Crime Panel to comment on individual cases, as this falls outside their remit. Nevertheless, it's important to provide reassurances that legal advice is sought in every instance where there is a suspicion that an officer or former officer may have committed a criminal offence. The assessment applied is the same evidential threshold that would be used for any member of the public. I think that's the end of it, actually. So, there's the question, there's the answer. I don't know whether I want to comment upon that themselves, whether or not you want any from that.
We shouldn't interfere in the process. If the matter's been referred to the CPS and the CPS have said no, then the matter's been dealt with. And the panel, the misconduct panels, dealt with it in accordance with the law.
Yeah.
So can we interfere in any of that process?
One thing that might be, I'm just thinking of, I agree with you, by the way, fully. Sorry, I was having a thinking moment. One of the things which I was going to bring up in any of the business was about having thoughts around what we might want to bring for future agendas. And I just wonder whether, for example, an example in there was given about the written evidence provided to the Commissioner, whether it would be useful for assurances, because it's been raised there, is she getting it, and is she getting it consistently? You know, so that came out. I mean, it's a little question, but I think that would give us assurance that she is getting that information as she has requested.
As long as it's not the police marking their own homework, in a sense,
everything is compliant with the law and compliant with guidance. And
because the chairman's legally qualified now, is he?
I don't know.
He or she, sorry. He or she.
I'm
sorry
today.
Sorry, he or she. But I understand, because they're independent anyway, so they're outside the police authority, outside the police service.
I think Aaron mentioned Jenny Gilmore, who's from North Wales Police. North Wales, whatever.
Okay, we've got another, sorry,
No, you can't know who it is.
I would welcome more clarity around this topic personally. You know, I don't feel like I have enough information on these procedures right now to fully comment on this letter, but which we haven't had sight of before today, or the response. But I would like to have a little bit more clarity on that, and I would like to seek some sort of assurance that issues around violence against women and girls also include internal misconduct and members of the police, and I would like to see that addressed.
Is it worth the panel having a statement on the letter to say that we've looked at the letter and we've seen the response by the commissioner, and it is the panel's view of X, Y, Z, nothing to do with us, sort of.
I'm there's two issues. I'm just thinking of what Hannah was saying. I know you're doing it. I wonder whether it would be useful to have an agenda item in a future agenda item that asks about process and that assurances that the information the commissioner requires in order to hold the chief constable to account is being provided and being provided at quality. So which links in then to the ending violence against women and girls.
In effect, it's two stages, isn't it? It's one about how does process happen, and secondly, it's how that process is scrutinised and whether that's happening regularly as well. And I think the point that Gareth made about the fact that actually that decision being made by the CPS. So in a sense, we may disagree with that decision, but that's not for us to necessarily. I think also linking it with the whole issue of fire rescue seems to me to be really important at the moment.
I'll make a note of what you said there, and we'll recommend an agenda item in the
We
future.
should make a note of that in a letter. No response.
Well, we're not responding. It was being response from the commissioner, you see. Okay.
It's more for transparency because I think there is an item within that around, you know, just ensuring the commissioner.
Okay, we've got a statement from a gentleman, Mr. Whitrow, in Neath, and this is just a statement to the commissioner. He's saying, I'm writing as a resident of Neath to register my formal and strenuous objection to the police precept currently levelled through my council tax. I strongly oppose the mandatory nature of this funding model. It is unacceptable that residents are forced to subsidise your office and the South Wales Police through a regressive local tax, regardless of whether we approve of your spending priorities or the perceived effectiveness of the service provided. Furthermore, I wish to highlight a deep-seated frustration regarding the inequality of service. It appears that for the average man in the street, your office and the force do very little when help is actually needed. In stark contrast, when a business calls, your resources are seemingly available within minutes. This disparity is unacceptable for a service funded by the public. The facts regarding your statement are clearly available. South Wales Police is a registered entity. It gives the DUNS number. Operating in many ways like a business. I object to being compelled to fund an organisation that appears to be run for profit-driven efficiency and corporate interests rather than for the protection and service of individual taxpayers. The continued and significant increases in the police precept place an unjustifiable financial burden on households. I do not consent to this police tax and expect this objection to be formally recorded and presented to the Police and Crime Panel, which it has. So he's not happy with precept. So there's nothing more than that. That was sent to the Commissioner as well. The Commissioner has seen that. Okay. And the last...
we need to respond to that, though.
Well, it's not to us. It's not to us. It's to the Commissioner. It's not to us.
Has there been a response from the commissioner?
No. Well, I don't know.
Don't you think someone should respond, though? If someone just to say,
Don't know.
thank you, noted, or something like that.
Just to clarify, we don't know when.
Oh, right.
Responded.
Addressed to us.
No, it was addressed to the Commissioner, copied to us. Okay.
Right.
So, you know, I mean,
But they've asked us to consider it, haven't they?
they've asked us to read it out. No, yeah, do not consent to be presented.
Yeah. So should we just not say thank you very much? Noted.
Yeah, but it has been.
There's not much.
I think I already said that to him.
Yeah, there we are. Thank you, Simon.
Okay. And the last one is Mr. Jenkins. He lives in Cardiff, and he's posed a couple of questions. He asked for the panel's views on the benefits of transfer of the elected mayoral model of or council leaders. Can you read that again?
Oh, Mr. Peter Jenkins, isn't it? My ward colleague.
Yes. Yeah. You asked for the panel's views on the benefits of transfer to the elected mayoral system or council leaders. And this is a response that was, the question was sent to the Commissioner's office and they've responded. As you may be aware, the Welsh model is yet to be confirmed, with the police reform paper requiring discussions on the model for Wales. As matters currently stand, it's difficult to provide a response to this question at this time, especially with Welsh Government elections in May. The panel has, however, been offered assurances from the Commissioner that she will work to ensure that communities of Wales are at the heart of any future delivery model, and this is echoed by the panel. He then asked what the delivery plan is for the PCC from now until 2028 when that model finishes. And the response was, I assure you that the panel and the PCC Wolves are working out to understand what delivery will now look like within the time left. The objectives of the Police and Crime and Justice Plan remain, but delivery will now be reframed considering transition to a new administration. The focus of the February panel was finance and budget setting. However, the delivery plan for the remainder of the term will be a key agenda item for future panels. And then the final one from him, second statement, right. Mr. Jenkins has never been happy with the Commissioner and the panel, and he's written consistently over the last 10 years. And I think Mr. Jenkins is pleased that the Commissioner's role is coming to an end and the panel's. And he says here, the public must feel that they are being ripped off. Council tax is always going up and the services, including the police provide, have deteriorated to an all-time low. What a disgrace. He's never been happy with the South Wales Police. So those are the statements and the questions from Mr. Jenkins.
Can I just, just for clarity, I think, Simon, whilst obviously the PCC's responded, the mayoral model, is that still on the statute book in Wales? Because it disappeared, did it? So it's just the executive model now. So it was repealed because it used to be, didn't it? So there was a provision that people could have a referendum and have the mayoral model.
My understanding is that there was going to be guidance given at the end of March about how to consider the governance model in Wales, given the lack of mayoral, it's difficult word to say. Mayoral, what the mayor is not mayor.
Easy for you to say.
That's right. So I think the going forward model of governance is something that we really need to consider, and we really need information to be coming as and when it's available, really.
I was going to pick that point up because I think it's fundamental for us as a panel to be engaged in that process. Absolutely. Because obviously fire and rescue services, I understand, is being handed back to the cabinet members now in South Wales. Was it the leader? I don't know, but it's going the other. And obviously if there's a consultation with this, the only way it can either go back, it'll go back to elected members unless there's a statutory body set up to look at it. And I think, in my view, we should be engaged fully in that process.
At our last meeting and any other business, because it had been a very long meeting, a lot of people had actually left. One of the suggestions that I had was that we start to consider how we look at that, both in terms of what we think we've done well and where we think not us personally, but even perhaps in discussion with Bernie is talk to the other panels in Wales about that, about some sort of process. I was then going to write to people to gauge their thoughts about that, but then one reason or another I didn't, and also then we hit the pre-election period, and so it didn't seem appropriate to do that. But how we want to be engaged in that, whether we should be doing it through informal structures more regularly during this next process, both in terms of scrutinising what's going on at the moment and also the transition process. And I think that's absolutely vital for us to be having that engagement. I think you're absolutely right, because I think that otherwise all the things that we think we've achieved and all the things we think, oh, if only we'd had that, we could have done that, that gets lost. And in terms of continuity of learning, I think that's vital that we're engaged in that process.
So is Lee providing us that or not?
This links actually with that whole agenda setting. I think, you know, part of our role is also to set agendas for our future meetings. Certainly, I think we need to ask for an update on where things are at. Obviously, we'd probably need to be guided by timeliness on that, because, you know, there'll be key times, I imagine, when they'll be able to say more than others. And similarly, we need an opportunity to feed back in. Now, I wonder whether, remember, just see what you think. Remember previously where we've been down to headquarters and we've had meetings and we've had like a discussion and been able to look in detail at something. And I know that was very much, quite often that's operational stuff as well, but maybe we need a same approach, but in relation to reform that takes so the background work, if we do that informally amongst ourselves, maybe have a meeting outside a panel and then have a direct discussion with the commissioner and ideally, I think the chief constable as well. So I'd imagine they're all, especially with what we've talked about his transition across the governance structures.
There seems to be something about on a strategic level about back to your point about timelines, really. But what are the proposed timelines? Where are they coming? And are those being consistently followed? And our responses to all of those as well. But also, I think being proactive in that, because otherwise we're going to sit back and nod our way through this. And I think that there's a way in which we could be actually actively engaged and proactive in what the structures will look like. And I think particularly from you guys, you know, as local members, what is going to happen and how are you going to be involved in that? I feel that's fine.
Yeah, and we'd like to know what our, in these yearly or 2 yearly contracts is what the ambitions are and what they want to achieve in that.
I'm conscious, Joe.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Pretend had decided the backbenchers can't sit on this panel anymore. They want cabinet members only. They dropped it on me last month. Because of the news, they want to get involved in the new structure and they want to do it from cabinet level.
So that could be an unintended consequence of us being proactive, is you may find, which each local authority is entitled to make that decision. But you'll be missed, Joe.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't happy about it. But they said it's going the same way as the fire service. I really wasn't happy about it. Nobody else wants to do it. So you'll probably end up with, I would have thought, Martin Jones back. He's a police officer.
Smart.
He's lovely. Matt's fab. But that's what will probably happen because he's cabinet member for education and something. But they've, I don't know where they've come up with this decision. I think it's the deputy leader.
So
when they intend to implement.
And it may vary across local authorities.
We've got our annual meeting now in May.
So,
and that's when
they promote you to cabinet.
I don't want to.
Another unintended consequence.
And please don't see this as me putting my foot in it, as always. But I think it's extremely important to capture the knowledge around this table.
Absolutely.
Because in 2027, each and every one of you above will be up for a re-election. What we don't want is to lose all that experience, have a new only for a year. We're only going for a year and we'll lose all that experience. And I think it's very important, as you said, we capture the good bits, the not so good bits and the bad bits. And we push that forward as a matter of urgency, because 2028 and certainly May 2027 will be around just like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we capture that information.
I think that's a good point. So we need to.
On a leaflet.
Well, we're all listening, right?
But it is,
So
though,
we
isn't it?
need to expedite some of this. So if
We've all got to know each other. It takes time,
Yeah.
does that?
no, it's fine. It's fine. Do you?
No, when you were talking about mayoral duties, you were talking about the ones within council earlier, yeah?
No,
Oh.
like Greater Manchester Mayor and
Right.
things like that. So that some of the devolved models that are
Right,
happening in
okay.
England, which aren't applicable in Wales, and this.
I'm at the behest of my group, so every AGM every year,
Yeah.
it's you have to be on the panel.
But I think it's having to be reappointed. It's having to go back through the Home Office to make sure that they. So they'll only have a very short period of time by the time they get that person.
For 6 couple of months, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mr. Fitzgerald has been approved as of today. So we've always been one short for the last 3 months since Mark Tribe stepped down, but he's been approved today. But that took best part of 2.5 months, 3 months.
So by the time you've got to stop, we've got the break in the summer as well, and they get
July
reappointed.
meetings, yeah.
We've
I know,
less than a year.
There's no logic. There is no logic.
Within my coalition, what we have a sort of system that the leader decided, if you have a position such as this, it's yours until you decide you no longer want it for continuity.
I think, to be fair, I think every local
Then-
authority
Yeah.
will have their own. They're independent,
That's
aren't
the
they?
thing.
So
Yeah.
they'll have their
Yeah.
way,
Yes.
and
Yeah. No
that,
criticism of.
yeah.
I'm just thinking
So-
that for us as a panel.
I think what's happened in the
So-
past is when somebody after the elections is reappointed to the panel, let's just say you have the elections and you're reappointed, we don't go through the whole Home Office process.
No.
You've already been approved, but anybody new on the panel, like Martin, if it ended up being him,
Imagine it'd be Mark.
then he'd have to be
Yeah, I know it doesn't seem any point really, but
I'm just going to try and kind of move this forward. So it sounds like there's consensus around us being more proactive and actually feeding into the process and checking an opportunity to do so. In order to do that, it'd be useful if Lee or the Commissioner has sight of any good times so that we can time maybe gathering of information off us to be able to do that and have a meeting with them. If you're happy in the meanwhile to take Sarah up on her offer, if you've still got capacity to do so, to reach out, and obviously I'm more than happy to help. To reach out to all of us so that we can have, give feedback in, and I'm happy for you to
Thank you.
decide the mechanism
yeah.
in which to do that, because I think
But presumably I'd have to wait now till after May 7th.
I think it would be
Yeah.
prudent to wait till
I
after
think
May the
you're right,
7th.
yes.
Just,
Because the whole one read it.
and a lot of people are very busy
No, I
between now
agree.
and May the 7th.
So I'll do, there is just that one thing to finish that bit off is that a mechanism or a process or a thought way in which we may be able to involve other panels in Wales, and whether that needs to go through the Commissioner or whether that can be different.
I think we can do it.
Okay.
I think we could do it. If we could write to the panels, maybe after May the 7th, and ask if they're minded to
Yeah.
do the same.
What
If
their
you're
current
happy to do that.
what their current plans are and what
Yeah.
their thoughts are, and whether they think there's anything that's useful
Any
that comes
shares.
from the point of view of a collective voice.
Yeah.
Perhaps we could do
Shared
that.
learning.
Perhaps we could do it via the WLGA because
Yeah.
we have
That'd be a good
we
idea.
have these inter-panel meetings. And then maybe the sort of
Yeah,
the activation
Yeah.
point
Good.
for them to
Could you-
set one up. Yeah,
Right to
mention
do
it to
the-
Naomi.
They could facilitate a meeting if
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
they do.
Good.
So maybe
Yeah.
that would be
That would be really
Yeah.
helpful, wouldn't it?
Good.
And, well, thank you. Just as a final matter, if there is anything that you think could be added to agenda items, or if we think over the next 12 months ahead, can you let us know? And
I did say in
Bring
the
that-
online meeting that I'd like the Finance Committee to look at the when we took a decision on the precept that, as I said, not 3 weeks later, the Secretary of State for Wales announced that there was 17 million coming down the M4 to us. And I just felt that, who knew about that? Were we aware of it?
We didn't know the detail, did we?
No, that's right. Yeah, it was just, so
I'd support that, because the difficulty we had, if you recall, precept before, we had exactly the same situation. The announcement was made by the Home Office on the Friday. We had the precept meeting on the Tuesday. And when you ask the question, it's, oh, well, we don't know. And the problem is, as my view is you can't make a decision if you don't know what's coming. It could be millions of pounds. It was millions of pounds, but it was focused on recruitment and retention, is my understanding of the new thing. But I agree with Sean. I think the problem is we're caught between the devil and the deep blue sea in some respects. But if you don't, they would have known that there was some money. It doesn't come out of the ether, in my view. They will know there's some money, unless it's Welsh Government, beginning of March, all of a sudden spend £10 million by the end of March because we found a pot of gold. But they would have known. And I think it puts us as a panel in a very difficult position, because you'll get letters like that then saying, oh, hang on a minute, they had another £17 million. You could have cancelled tax by 2% or whatever.
Or kept it at inflation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing is, and I did mention it, I think it's essential that the Finance Committee gets under the carpet of these figures, because I was having a look the other day, because I thought it would be quite interesting to see what the precept was and how much in reserves did the force have. Then the last couple of years, whilst the precept's gone up quite substantially, last year I think it put £250,000 into the reserve pot because it was in credit, and the year before that it put about £500,000 in the pot because it was in credit. And maybe not a matter for this panel at the time, but one year they put £5 million surplus into the general fund, and it still put a huge increase on the precept figure. So I think we just need to be very careful, because we don't have that information. We've never had it in reality, and we won't have the accounts for 2025-26 until they're signed off this year. But we get caught in the middle of this, and I think, no concern to I can kick up as much as I want, but from a political perspective, in my view, we record this. You just need to be very careful, because if there's a £5 million pot and you put the precept up by 6 or 7%.
Well, it's not good optics, is it?
No, the question for next year is,
do you know what I mean?
Before we make this decision on precept, have we got anything coming down the line that you're aware of?
I think
Because that will
we
base
must
our
remember
decision.
what happened this year. Like Gareth said, on Friday it was announced, on Tuesday was the precept meeting.
Yeah.
So realistically, that timing was not brilliant, but it was.
And it happened again this year.
It happened again.
It was out of.
Yeah, we set the.
It was also out of hands to a degree, because decisions have to be made within certain legal timelines. So I'm just thinking for clarity, because this is recorded and people might not realise that's why the meeting took place when it took place, because legally we had to, that decision had to be made by a certain date. So there is something around that, the announcements and the how rapid. So it's not so much that it was intentional, it was what had happened. I think as well that we have the finance subcommittee now, that we will see what the impact of that is. I'm certainly, as a member of that, so I'm very open to, if there's particular areas that any panel member wants to look at, to feed that into Simon. We can ask and we can look and feedback if my colleagues aren't too.
Yeah, no.
Then it's allowed for that. So so I think part of that report from finance will become part of the sequence on the agenda going forward, and we've got them now mapped out for the next 12 months.
I think it's important for the panel to see, well, apart from the subgroup as well, is the month 9 report from the force, because that will give you an indication as to whether they're going into
What direction?
deficit or into a surplus situation. Because if you don't see that month 9 report, then you're whistling in the, you know, sometimes without that knowledge. So I think
So
that's
we will
important.
make sure that things like that happen. So there'll be some things that we'll know is going to be important for everyone to see, but also it's that two-way. If there is something specific like that you are sure, just let us know so that we can make sure
Great, thanks,
those questions are asked. Okay, is there any other business? Thank you, everyone. Can I just say thank you?
Kevin.
Rest of the week. The sun is out. The sun is out.
We are in Merthyr.
Right.
It will come out, but it was delayed an hour.